Today, we will continue with the second module, where we will cover the Python fundamentals, going over variables, comments, and some primitive data types, along with the definition of an algorithm. So let's take it step by step. Let's start with the variable, which we can understand it as a container that holds information. You can also name the container, put something in it like a number or a word, and use it later in your code. Um, a variable would look like this. I have name, which is the name of the variable, which is equal to something. In my case, it will be equal to Bogdan, my name. So now I have the value Bogdan, which is stored in the variable named name. Few rules that we have when you give the name to the variables. For example, you cannot start with a number. So if you want to name your variable starting with a number, that's not possible. Only if you do like this. Another thing is you cannot have spaces. So if I want to do this, one space name, this is not going to be valid, but instead we can use how it is called snake case, which is basically separating the words using this underscore. Another one would be symbols. We have a bunch of symbols that cannot be used in a variable name, like percentage, like exclamation mark, like question mark, and so on. And also, it is considered best practice, not going to actually give an error, to use the variable names with lowercase. And the last thing that would be great to know about variable names is that you cannot use Python reserved words to actually name your variable. So we know that we have if as a keyword for when we want to create an if statement, and you cannot name your variable if because this keyword if, it is reserved by Python for something else. Same goes for or other type of keywords that are reserved. Now, you think maybe what is the use of a variable? So why do I have to create this variable? Let me show you an example, a real life example. Let's say I have my name as variable, right? And I want to print my name, let's say 10 times, right? But then my boss is telling me, hey, I don't want your name there. I want other colleagues' name like John or Ben. So instead of me going over each of this, changing from Bowden to John, every single line, what I can do is change the variable value Bowden to John, and when I print this, it will print John 10 times instead of printing Bowden 10 times. So see, this is the main reason why it's a very good practice to create variables for any value that you want to actually store. Now let's cover the comments, which are text written in the code that is ignored by the Python interpreter. But that's the point, because they are used to make the code more readable and also provide relevant explanation. And we have two options here. We can use single line comments, which you will need to use hashtag at the start of the line. And now that line will be ignored. So let's say in our example, if I don't want to print all 10 John names, I only want to print 9. If I comment this one, and let me show you that this works, because I'm calling this Bogdan, and let me print this first. You see the Bogdan is here, but if I start the line with an hashtag, then you will see that button, it's no longer gonna be printed. So essentially, this code right here now will be ignored by Python interpreter. Now there is another option. If I want, for example, to print only the first one, but I don't want to delete everything, but just make Python ignore it. What I can do is cover everything in triple quotes, right? At the beginning and at the end. And the entire code that I just added this, it will be ignored. But in reality, this is not exactly ignored because as you can see, even the color is different from a real comment. What is happening here is that this is transforming everything in a string. But the good thing is that it won't use memory. because Python will not execute anything, even though it's not actually ignoring it. We use comments essentially, as I mentioned previously, for describing what we are doing here. If we have a function, before the function, we can say function that is adding up two numbers or whatever else. We want to comment things to make sure if we will come later to the same script, we want to easily understand what we were trying to achieve. But also, if someone else is coming and trying to work with your script, to make sure they understand the way you approach the problem, right? So printing my name. So yeah, that's basically it about comments. Now I think it's the time to cover the algorithm. And maybe you've heard of this before, and probably you never understood what it's referring to. Well, it is simple. An algorithm is a step-by-step set of instructions to solve a problem or complete a task. Kind of like receipt in cooking, for example, right? So I want to show you an example. Let me make a function here, which is add two numbers. And we take number one and number two. And we do return number one. Let's do result equal to number one plus number two, and then return the result. Now, if I call this function and I give two numbers, you will see that it will be printing the result, the sum of these two numbers, right? So it's 10. So this is actually an algorithm because what I did here is we take two numbers, right? N1 and NB, we add them together, and then we show, or in our case, return the result. So this is a very, very simple, but indeed, this is an algorithm. Now, as a last thing in this second module, I want to cover common variable types in Python. And let's start with numbers. So we have numbers, which are split in two. Like we have integers, which are also represented by this keyword int. And for example, we have 1, 10, 25, 32, and so on. These are basically the whole numbers. But also in the same numbers category, I would say, we have floating point, and which those are the decimal numbers. And here we can give example, the pi value, the pi value 0.001, and so on. So basically the decimal numbers, right? We also have strings. This is the second type of data, and string is represented by str as a keyword, and string is basically text data. And one important thing here is that if for numbers we actually use them as they are, so let's say age equal to 25, you see I just type here 25, which is an integer number. For strings, actually, if I want to type something and consider it as a string, I want to write the text inside the quotes. That's why you saw me in the previous example adding my name into quotes. So yeah, this is the representation of string in Python. Also have Boolean, which is, let's see, Boolean, which is represented by keyword bool, and this is simple. This is just logical values, which can be true or false, nothing else. And the last thing, which is not that important because to be honest, I barely use this, is the complex, which is represented by complex keyword, and these are the complex values. And an example here would be, I don't know, 2 plus 3 I or something. Now we want to give some homework, I would say. I want to give you some exercises so you can practice with the variable and names and everything. You can try to create multiple variables. You can even try to play with some operators, even if we didn't get a chance yet to cover them. This will be part of the third module. It tried to actually create some variable, assign values to them, try to print them later on, and so on. This will help you to practice what we have been learning so far. Thank you again for watching on this. If you learned something new, or if you are interested in seeing the following modules that I will be uploading, don't forget to subscribe. Leave a comment with anything that you think can be improved. So let me know your feedback. Thank you.